Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Creative Mornings talk number 116. Thank you for making it, especially on a day that seems like part of a long weekend. So thank you for making it. So Creative Mornings is a breakfast lecture series which we host once a month on a Sunday morning. And there are chapters across the world. For those of you who don't know, there are 255 plus chapters, out of which the Bangalore chapter is one. And Teapoy started Creative Mornings Bangalore in 2013. Now there's also Bangalore, a Bombay chapter and a Gurgaon chapter, Chennai chapter, which is also very active. And we are able to run our events thanks to our local partners. First of all, today we'd like to thank Radel because they are our resource partner. And of course, we are all here. The reason we're all here is to hear the story of Radel, which I'll come to shortly. I'd like to thank Samagata Foundation, Roshni and Deepa for supporting us month on month. I know we're coming here after a long time for those of you who've been attending talks at Samagata, but and the staff here, Yogesh and Williams, for helping us set up in such a beautiful way. I'd like to thank Candor Concepts. You'll see all these folks with the cameras who are helping us document the event today, Harish's team, and they're all here so that we're able to document the event and put it up online. We'd like to thank Mudfingers and Zero the Varsity for being our souvenir partners. And Adobe happens to be our global chapter. Global partner Adobe helps us with. And so we are able to focus on creating a community event live. We'd like to thank our volunteers today. Megha, thank you for bringing in these cookies. Thanks to Kiran for helping with the audio right there. And Santosh, who is with the screens at the back. Everyone else here. Sandeep and Guru from Radel for being at the desk, which has the items on, not just display, by the way, they're demo instruments, so everyone is free to go and touch and feel and try out the instruments after the event if you haven't. CMBLR is our tag on social media, so please help us spread the word if you want to post anything online. And like I said, we put up all of our talks on YouTube. This is the page where it all goes, so you can catch the talks there as well. And we have a theme on a monthly basis which we try to follow and interpret as a local chapter. Last month, for example, was competition, which we gamified thanks to Fields of View. Karthik is actually here. He facilitated, along with his team, a session where we played politics, almost, and we dwelled on civic issues. So that was a really fun event as well. This month, the theme happens to be what the global chapters do. The headquarters is encouraging now is taking local words and trying to interpret them. It's not just English anymore. So we have a word called Nakhlah, which is an Arabic word which means the palm tree, basically. So what their interpretation is the resilience of a palm tree which sort of thrives in harsh conditions. And we thought, why not look at a homegrown brand like Radel, which is synonymous with music. In fact, this month we decided to do this, and it became quite a nostalgic factor because it's brought about a lot of nostalgia, honestly. We have a bunch of people who got in touch with us and said, my first Shruti Petge was in 1992 from Radel, and somebody who's learned from Mr. Raj Narayan's mom. So these kind of things, suddenly there's a nostalgic element to today's talk, and it's very rare to have that. And it just goes to show how resilient a company like Radel has been in our city. So to introduce our speakers, there's like a big quandary in my mind because when we first met Mr. Raj Narayan and Radhika ma'am, we were talking about so many different aspects. We were talking about music, we were talking about engineering, business, economics, we were talking about education and town planning. And these are all the kind of sectors that they've actually dwelled in all of these years. Of course, they started Radel in early 70s, 1979. And since then, all of this has sort of happened. So, if I were to start my introduction about Raj Narayan sir, I would say, maybe I could start with saying that he's both a left and a right-brained person, which is very rare to find. Though he's sort of an M.Tech in electronics from IIT Madras. And he went on to building this company and things along with Radhika ma'am. He's been a musician who's learnt from his mother. And so sir plays the flute and ma'am plays the veena. Mr. Raj Narayan is a Vidwan and an A-grade artist in the Akashvani. Of course, if I go into the awards, then we'll need a lot more time. But one of the awards he won was the All India Akashvani competition back in 1968. And just yesterday, he was mentioning how he's been in Bangalore since 1959. So 50 years plus of Radel, and I think we should just give them a round of applause for what they've done. And Radhika ma'am, being holding a master's degree in endocrinology from Bombay, completely shifted tracks and started working on the business along with sir. So both of them built Radel Electronics, which not only, by the way, works with musical instruments and the Shruti box and the Tanpura, the electronic Tanpura like we can see, but they also have the avionics side of things which they cater to, which we hope sir will at least talk about. There's a lot that we could have asked sir and ma'am to talk about today, but we've streamlined it a little bit to how a homegrown brand like this even starts and how they sort of persevered all of this while. So yeah, it's an honor for me and a great pleasure to welcome both Mr. Raj Narayan and Radhika Raj Narayan today for our talk.
Thank you, Karishma and Vishwesh. It was an accidental meeting, like Karishma said, that happened about 3 weeks ago. And both of us were surprised with each other's background and the passionate involvement in a variety of topics, besides the fact that both of us spent our childhood and grew up in South Bangalore and Jayanagar and JP Nagar. I also found it very inspirational to hear of this creative morning because I had never heard of it earlier for some strange reason. Obviously, it's not been publicized too much. But having been in a field where it's all about creativity, music is about creativity all the time. So I found it very, very interesting that such sessions were being held once a month, and it's been quite popular, obviously, looking at the number of people here. And we said, okay, we've also been engaged in a lot of creative activity apart from the music that we perform. And creativity and innovation are the buzzwords today. You take any magazine, any podcast, anything, these two words will be there. And it's all centered around it. Now it's veering towards AI and ML. So I said, yes, this is something we can do, have a short talk for the benefit of, like she said, the elderly who will feel nostalgic about it, and the youngster who can get to know something about how we broke traditional barriers and got into something that nobody else had done in this country. I certainly feel that every day should be creative. All of us should be engaging in some creative activity because that's the highest value addition, value creation. Whether it leads to products or a business or one's own personal life. It's a way of how you look at things, what you have been doing every day and how it can be done better, how you do it differently. And that's something that every child needs to be sort of guided into, which doesn't happen in our society. Unfortunately, neither the educational system nor the parents have the time to look at what the child is doing, what he or she needs to be doing, and how to channelize them into something that they would love and enjoy right through their lives. And this is what actually happened to me and to some extent to Radhika also, because I grew up, I think I'll start off with a slide presentation which will give you our background as well as how the business started, and then maybe I'll open it out for interactive discussion, because I would love to answer a lot of questions that many of you might have. Yeah, next please. I belong to a family of musicians. My mother learnt Karnatic music from the age of maybe 6 or 7, and at the age of 13, 14 she performed at the music academy, of course in one of those prayer songs and all that. There were 3 sisters, but it's only my mother who got to pursue and continue her music even after she got married. But there also my father used to play the flute. And there you see him performing when he was maybe in his 30s. He was an engineer from Bangalore. He graduated in 1922 from the only engineering college in Bangalore which existed at that time. And his degree certificate says BE Honours. And he hailed from a village close to Hassan called Gorur. That's my name, Gorur Raj Narayan. And he was a very radical person. So immediately after his graduation, he wanted to go to Germany and do a post-graduation in engineering. So he spent 2 years doing a diploma, postgraduate diploma in industrial engineering, and he works in the German railways pre-World War II, 1930s, during Hitler's time. So you can imagine the kind of insight he would have got into engineering, industry, skills, etc. And so right from my birth, I've lived and grown up in a house which had all kinds of tools, hand tools, electric tools. And I started working on a woodworking lathe at the age of 9. Would you believe it? At home. So this is the environment. And my mother, you see her playing the Vichitra veena, which she designed herself way back in 1947. And she got it made to her design by a veena maker in Delhi. So I was born in Delhi, and she was performing. She learned to perform Hindustani music because she got into the All India Radio Orchestra, of which Pandit Ravi Shankar was the producer. So perhaps she would have been the only lady performing music. Classical music was not performed on stage by ladies those days. It was not considered appropriate. So she was bold enough. She was also a pathbreaker. My father was also a pathbreaker. So I grew up in an environment which had no horizons, no boundaries.
Can I interrupt you? His father was also very inventive and creative. In that photograph you see he's playing the flute. Look at his right thigh. It's resting on something. Yeah, his left thigh rather. Can you explain what that is?
So those days, even when I started learning and practicing music, I started playing the flute. Before that, my mother taught me vocal music when I was barely 4. And we have recordings of that also, tape recordings. What my father is doing here is operating the Shruti box, which is a bellows-based, reed-based instrument, which would give you the drone, the sa, pa, sa. Now, playing on the flute, your hands are not free. So he devised a stand for that. So it is leaning on a stand, and he is using his knee to pump the bellows. That's what he's doing. That's something he invented for himself, being a mechanical engineer. So this was there at home, even in 1960 when I started learning. But I said I would end up with pain in my hip and thighs. And I said, this is not for me. Being an electronics engineer, I must find an electronic solution for this, and not a mechanical engineering. This is what I'm going to come, if you can remind me later, because when I open it for a open discussion, this is how creativity and innovation happens. You need to be exposed to a wide variety of domains for your creative thinking to blossom. If you're only an electronics engineer, you will only think about electronic solutions and not a mechanical engineering solution or a hydraulic solution. If you are multidisciplinary, you will think of what is a solution that works in a hydraulic field. Can you apply it, or can you use an analogy to find an equivalent solution in electronics or electrical engineering? And that is the benefit I got through my upbringing and the kind of exposure I got. I used to do all kinds of work, and I used to be encouraged by my parents. My mother used to do a lot of embroidery work, and I used to observe, and she would say, "You want to do it?" I said, "Yes." So I got onto a sewing machine at the age of about 6 or 7 and did applique embroidery work.
A small tray cloth. I still have it.
Still there. Multicolored, this, then. You have to move that frame while the machine is running. And I watched my mother. She said, "Come on, do it." Because you make some mistakes, but then that's part of learning. And this is precisely what I feel is missing for today's children, the youth, children and the youth. So this is the environment in which I grew up. The next photographs you see, my sister, right in the middle is my sister. She must have been about 8 or 9 at that time. We were in Delhi, and she's performing. She was singing Carnatic music. Ultimately, she learned Hindustani music also. She was perhaps have been the first A-grade artist, A-graded in both Hindustani and Carnatic music in All India Radio. There at the bottom right photograph, I'm at the veena. This is my mother's veena, and I was obviously fooling around. I wasn't really playing it, but this again is the environment. This is when after I grew up, just after my engineering, I got the Akashvani prize. In fact, none of my classmates knew I was playing on the flute. None of my younger friends knew I was, because I was very shy kid, and I thought music was meant only for girls and not for boys. You know, these are all hang-ups we all developed as kids. And then it so happened that when I was in high school, I found another kid playing flute. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the name B.N. Suresh. He was senior to me in school. He was a child prodigy. So for one of our school day functions, I heard him play, and I was fascinated. And then I went home and told my mother, I learned the flute. She jumped with joy and immediately put me into a school, music school, and I started learning. And 1968, during my final year engineering, I appeared for the All India Radio Music Competition, won the first prize. I got the prize only after I graduated. So there you see me on the right side performing in the Akashvani studio.
That was the time when he felt the need for an instrument to accompany on the Shruti and the Tala, because when you need to perform and practice for the performance on All India Radio, you need to practice every day for an hour, 2 hours. And for that length of time, you are dependent on another person. At that point of time in 1968, 69, it was his mother. So all the time somebody has to be there, because both the flutist's hand are occupied, any instrumentalist. So they need another person, and that's when he wanted to use his creativity to create something that would eliminate that requirement, that he could be independent, practice by himself without having to depend on someone else to sit and practice, help him practice. And
They
that's how
say
the Shruti Bhava
necessity
came
is the mother of invention. This is exactly what happened. And I never looked at this as a business that would keep me occupied for 40 or 45 years. It's now 46 years since we started. Yeah, 47 years. So, and that is what I'm trying to highlight and impress upon the younger crowd here, saying more exposure you get to different varieties of skills and disciplines, more you get into creative ideas that work, and you will find solutions, not just one, many solutions. And you can pick out the best or optimal solution for your particular application. This picture shows, so what I needed first was a Shruti box, the drone or the Sapa fundamentals, so that with the Sa as the reference, I can perform my Sarigama Padanisa on my flute, or for her on the veena. So that was the starting point, and that is the instrument you see at the bottom. On top of it is what my mother called a talometer. This is again an electronic instrument. Now we put in Carnatic music, pretty complex tala structures are there. So the simplest is an 8-bit, which we call as Adi Tala. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are accepted motions of the hand to signify these counts. So it is theoretically called lagu, the beat, and then the counting of the fingers is lagu. This lagu can be either 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. So even counting 9 on your hand is not easy. It goes, because this finger gets repeated. So it's quite confusing. So I said, how can I, it has to be, for this to be useful to a musician, it has to more or less replicate what you see on somebody else putting the tala for you. It can't be a completely different methodology. So I wanted to replicate 5 by using a row of LEDs, one row of 9 LEDs for the lagu, and 2 dhrutams, that is beat and a wave of the hand, red and green, so that it's easy to distinguish the various beats and follow the tala structure. So that was again a revolutionary invention which I made in 1978. And I was using these two for my own practice. You know, when Carnatic music, you go into higher levels, you perform what are called pallavis. These pallavis are very complex tala structures. It can be 29 beats, 27, 25, 24, or even simple 16 beats, etc., etc. But if it is a complicated structure, then you need somebody well versed with Carnatic music to put the tala for you. Otherwise, you won't be able to manage it. And so it was absolutely necessary for my mother to sit in front of me, put the tala for me about an hour and a half if I wanted to practice. That's what she referred to. I couldn't hold up her home chores just for my practice. So I said I had to relieve her. Again, necessity. So I said, how can I set her free? I developed this tala instrument for my own use, never with the intent of a business. So once I did these two, the second one was a complex integrated circuit. It involved the use of a lot of integrated circuits which were not available in the commercial market those days. Because I was working in an R&D department in a chair those days, I was exposed to it. So that again gave me a different kind of exposure to a different discipline. Reliability, because everything in aerospace and defense has to be very reliable. It should consume the least of power. It should be easy to manufacture, easy to service. In fact, without any service, if it works for years and years, ideal. So if you are exposed to that, then you automatically apply that to a consumer product. How to make it reliable, how to make it consume less power, how can it work on batteries for 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours for a concert. And this again points to the need for every young engineer to be exposed to multiple disciplines, multiple sectors, domains, so that you can think of, like they say, think out of the box. If the box is only electronics, you can't think out of it. If your box has different compartments with electronics, mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatics, then you can be a wizard. And that is precisely what creativity is all about. Even I remember very clearly what my daughter told me one day. She was still a student at Chitrakala Parishad in Bangalore. And she said, we as artists have to keep watching and observing everything. I said, what is observing got to do with painting? Because I said, painting is just splashing of colors and painting either a person or an object or imagination, modern art and so on. She said, no, this is an interpretation of what you see. And then you interpret it in your own different way. That's what is creativity again. And that same thing applies to whether it's engineering or medicine or whatever other field. When I developed the talometer and I started performing music, one of the first things I did was to perform duets with my mother. I wasn't yet married, so my mother used to play on the veena and I started playing on the flute, so flute veena duets. We performed a few concerts, and after the concert everybody would say, of course, both of us, my mother was very good on the veena, Carnatic music. I also had graduated to a reasonably good standard, so we were able to match each other. But at the end of the concert, people would come and say, concert, how many of you understand Kannada? Yeah, concert tumba chanagittu, but veena kelisliಲ್ಲ. That is, we could hear only the flute, we couldn't hear the veena. Because veena by itself is a very mild instrument, it's very soft. So I said, I must find a solution to this. And that's when, because I was also playing the guitar those days, in my younger days, so I said, just like an electric guitar, why can't I make an electric veena? So here, this press report, what you see on the left, shows an electric veena that I demonstrated. I manufactured all these at home by myself. I was a good carpenter. To this day, I'm still a carpenter. I'm an electronics technician, electrical, automobile, everything I do at home by myself.
Plumber.
So that's an wooden electric veena that I made with a magnetic pickup fixed on it. And those gourds, the koda that you see, are paper mache. So it's not a resonator. So the vibrations of the string are picked up by the electromagnetic pickup, directly fed to an amplifier and amplified. So the sound is louder. You can make it as loud as you want, even much louder than a nadaswaram. So that got rid of this sound problem. Next, I said, in another concert, they again came back and said it wasn't properly balanced. What happened was the veena was connected to a PA system and it was going into the speaker, but the artist herself could not hear herself.
Those days they didn't have these monitor speakers, you know.
Yeah,
That's
they
come
didn't.
very recently.
So I said, okay, then the amplifier and speaker has to be in the veena itself. So I built an amplifier and speaker and put it into one of the kodas. So again, an innovation through need. When you identify or you encounter a problem, then automatically you start thinking about how can I get over this deficiency or a problem. And then it goes to multi-dimensional approach. Should I have an electronic solution or a mechanical solution or a pneumatic solution, etc., etc. If you're familiar with these different domains and disciplines, automatically your brain starts thinking about all the different possibilities. Then you zero in on what is the best appropriate solution for that particular application. And that is where I have repeatedly experienced this, that my background in different disciplines of engineering as well as art, like I said, embroidery. Oh, that will bring us to stitching bags, the carrying bags. Okay. Okay, so this is the electronic veena that transformed itself into a fully independent electronic veena with its own tambura also built into it. Normally veenas don't have a tambura built into it. Here you have an electronic tambura built into it in one kadam, and then an electronic speaker and amplifier built into the other kadam. And because these are not physically attached, need not be like a sound box. In a matter of less than a minute, you can disassemble the kodams, carry it on your shoulder in two separate bags. So it made the instrument very portable. So multiple solutions through what we developed, what you see there. Those gourds you can dismantle in just 10 seconds. He will demonstrate after this talk. And that's how I carried it. I've carried two of these veenas in the dicky of my car from Bangalore.
Imagine doing that with an acoustic veena. No.
So then after the veena, then came the electronic tambura, which is the next. It made headlines in Deccan Herald. This was a half-page write-up. City engineer makes electronic tambura. It was big news, though being a very, very niche classical music related news item, it didn't receive the kind of publicity that it would have received today because thanks to social media. We didn't have social media way back in, that was 1980, yeah, 80. And then I took this to the Music Academy, demonstrated this, the thalameter, the tambura. It had an extremely good, such a good reception from some of the musicians, especially Dr. Balamurali Krishna, who came backstage and immediately took me to his home saying, I want to start using it. In spite of it being a very, very niche area, there was an invitation or invitation for applications for awards from Indian manufacturers. That was in 1987. And somebody pointed it out to me. There is an organization in Delhi called Institute of Marketing and Management. And they had awards for different categories of engineering, marketing, etc. Some sponsored by Bata, some sponsored by LIC. And in that particular year, Binatone as a manufacturer of consumer electronics goods. Binatone is basically an UK company. So they wanted to enter the Indian market, so they sponsored prizes and awards for creative and intellectual, innovative products developed in India and marketed in India. So I applied for this and I was selected for an award of, it was called the Silver Award. And I'm receiving it from the Minister of Industries at that time. What's his name? I forgot. Tiwari, N.D. Tiwari. So this was an award ceremony in Delhi in the Vigyan Bhavan, after which we were even taken to the Rashtrapati Bhavan for a reception with Gyani Zail Singh, who was the president at that time. Next slide, please. So on the left is a concert that both of us are performing. I played the flute and she is performing on the electronic veena.
This was a festival to encourage young talent. It was called Kal Ke Kalakar. So tomorrow's artists, where we were invited to perform, and you can see that I'm using the electronic veena way back. That was 1986 and 87, and we got the award there.
Next slide, please. Yeah, there. Now, having focused on the needs of South Indian musicians, by then, these instruments we started manufacturing and selling, so it was catching on. So I said, okay, then what can I do for the Hindustani musicians? Because having been in Delhi, I used to watch my mother practice her Hindustani music on the veena, and every time she wanted to practice, there would be a tabla artist coming in, playing the tabla for her for about an hour.
Just for practice.
Just for practice, yes. This is because, unlike the South Indian music where we mark the tala on our hands through a scientific established system, the Hindustani musicians don't have this system of marking anything on their hands. It's all encoded into the tabla. So each stroke is a particular combination or just a stroke on the left hand or the right hand. They have these various bowls called dha, din, na, tin, etc., etc. And each has a distinct tone. By listening to the tone, you make out whether it's the first matra, second matra, etc., etc. And what is most important is the sum, the start of the cycle. The first count is called the sum. And they have to land on the sum with their bandish. Bandish is again a single line composition, which they again explore and on the spot improvise continuously. So they needed a tabla for their practice. So that was a handicap. Everybody, whether you are playing the sitar or even as vocalist, you need, without the tabla you can't practice. You can just sing rags, etc., but you can't practice your bandish because you don't know where the counts are going. So that was a handicap. So I was aware of it. So I said, can I make an electronic tabla? I hadn't yet made it. This idea came to me saying, as part of business growth and diversification, that she will talk about later. As you if you really want to establish your product line and you want to grow it, then you can't do with just one or two products. You must have a range of products. That's when the brand gets established. So you need to have opportunities. Opportunities will be there. You need to identify it, saying, yes, there is an opportunity here. If I had not thought of it, I don't know if anybody would have thought of making an electronic tabla. It didn't exist till then. So I invented for the first time. But before this, as soon as the idea came, I wanted to see if the North Indian musicians would be willing to use a machine. South Indian and Western music has a metronome, tick-tock. Some of you might have seen. Ting, ting, or you can program it to give you ting, ting, 1 in 2, 1 in 3, 1 in 4, etc. But it's a simple ting sound, which is what the Westerners need, 4 beats to a bar, 3 beats to a bar, or whatever. The talas and our tabla is played, and if you want the sounds of the tabla, you need to generate these sounds in real time. This was too early those days. We didn't have digital systems. We didn't have digital electronics. CDs did not exist. This was all pre-CDs, at least in India. So if I wanted to develop an electronic tabla, it had to be an analog tabla. That is what I did. I used analog circuits to synthesize the tabla strokes, the right hand and left hand. These are two distinct frequency bands. And each stroke has a spectrum distinct from another stroke. So I had to generate various frequencies, mix them in the required components, and get close to the realistic sound, which is what I did. You see there, behind the left side microphone, a rectangular box. That is the first prototype of an electronic tabla that I'm trying to demonstrate at the Indian Institute of World Culture in Bangalore. That was the first time this was launched in public. And my son, who was a kid of 4 or 5 years old, no, a little older, 8 years old, he's sitting there trying to operate the press buttons there. Start, stop, select different tals, etc. as I was performing. I had also learned to play the Hindustani style of music. So I'm performing Hindustani music there on a bansuri with the electronic tabla as an accompaniment. Now, once again, I'm trying to identify that knowledge of music, knowledge of Hindustani music, and knowledge of electronics was what enabled me to think of creating an electronic tabla. If I did not know music, I would possibly would not have identified this opportunity or the need. So once I launched the tabla, then everybody, right from Pandit Ravi Shankar to Ustad Vilayat Khan and everybody started using my products for their practice. Even though they would have got people waiting to perform a tabla for them or perform the tanpura, etc. But Pandit Ravi Shankar used to call me from London saying, I'm coming to India next month. Can you have a tabla ready for me or a tanpura ready for me? Here, you see Pandit Ravi Shankar launching a Sunadamala, which is a lehra instrument. So after I made the tabla, the counterpart of the tabla is a lehra. That is, it performs or plays a bandish for a tabla artist to practice.
Single tune, one line, over and over again. And various parts of that line indicate to the guy who's playing the tabla where he is in the cycle. Exactly like a reverse of what happens with the vocalist and the tabla. For the tabla, he needs the tune all the time. The same tune to be played again and again, and usually a harmonium or a sarangi does this for them. That person cannot deviate from that tune. He has to repeat that tune endlessly till his practice is over.
And it's a very monotonous job.
So he just developed the counterpart, that is electronic counterpart of the Lehra machine, and Panditji.
Yeah, Panditji was there in Bangalore for a concert, so I requested him whether he would agree to it. So he readily agreed, and we had a launch ceremony. And that same evening, I think he had a concert where he performed. Of course, he didn't use this instrument, so you can see how appreciative he was in the other photograph, tapping my cheek and
Saying you've come a long
saying a
way
lot
or
of nice
things like
things
that.
about me. Yeah, in fact, he jokingly said, I hope Raj Narayan doesn't come up with a machine that will play the sitar and eliminate me. So this is our factory in the Electronic City, which, as part of growth, we moved out from a garage operation to 2 or 3 separate locations. She was managing one factory, I was managing another factory. And then ultimately one day we decided we have grown enough, we should now merge all 3 and grow into an electronics, proper factory. So I walked into Kionics. The Electronic City was a sleepy town with hardly any industries there, 1994. Infosys had just then moved in, but they were still not as famous as they subsequently became. And it was primarily ITI which was operating as a public sector in Electronic City. Hardly any roads, hardly any infrastructure, hardly no transport, nothing at all.
No water.
No water. So I said, can I move to Electronic City? I walked into Kionics office, hoping to find out if there was some plot of land available, whether I could buy it, etc. And to my surprise, I found a board, Chairman Kionics, UDN Rao. And Mr. UDN Rao was present in that program where Pandit Ravi Shankar launched my Sunadmala. He was a patron of that organization which had organized that launch ceremony, Percussive Arts Center. So he knew all about my background. Till that occasion, he didn't know. But that day, he got to know. And he heard with his own ears what Pandit Ravi Shankar had spoken about me. So when I went into his office, he said, Ronnie, Raj Narayan, what can I do for you? And believe it or not, within a month, I got a plot allotted. No bribes paid, not a rupee spent, half-acre plot. And within 6 months, I built a factory and moved in, even though there was no infrastructure, no roads there, no transportation. I organized a public bus for transporting my 40, 50 employees who were working in Jayanagar and JP Nagar. Went and started operating there. So to start with, it was a ground floor. Then after about 6 years, we built the first floor for further growth and so on. That's how the industry looks now. This is another decision we took. ISO 9001 certificate applies normally to industries who are part of a supply chain or into big products, industrial products, etc. Because it's a system of approving or displaying your quality certification. Musicians never knew anything about what ISO 9000 stands for. So it has no meaning for them. So I debated with her whether we should do it. I said, whether it applies to the customer or not, we must have a well-established quality manufacturing and quality system so that the good quality output can be assured, irrespective of how it is perceived, the certification by itself. So we set up for ISO certification, got it certified, and the certifiers also were surprised because thanks to my exposure at HAL, where everything is documented, everything completely systemized. You have systems for everything, right from design to manufacture to after sales, etc. So having got exposure there, because I joined as a management trainee, we were trained in every department of the entire organization. So having got that exposure, I said, let us set up to the extent possible as appropriate for a small industry. So we documented each and every department, every process, and the auditors were very surprised that we had such professional documents. Within a month, they certified, and we put our labels ISO certified, irrespective of whether the customers knew anything about it or not. We got the satisfaction. Next slide, please. So these are the instruments. Yeah, I'll just talk about this tambura, which you see on the left side. So these other boxes, our products are all in boxes, basically to make it compact, and plastic molds so that you can mass produce it. You would be surprised, even to this day, the regular tamburas are handmade. Regular veenas are handmade. Kanjiras, mridagam, hardly any machines are used. Of late, people have started using it, but they still go for the jackwood, this, that, very, very traditional. Whereas our electronic tamburas, at one point of time, we were making about 2,500 tamburas a month. Traditional artisans couldn't have done it. So you can imagine how much this would have helped in enlarging the classical music ecosystem. That means that many kids were learning, that many people who were learning classical music had these aids. They were finding it useful. Now, thanks to app-based tamburas and tablas, this has come down, but we're still selling about 1,700, 1,800 tamburas a month, which is still a large number. About 600 of the electronic tablas a month. And so this sort of established the industry.
Literally revolutionized it, because till then the learning of classical music was going down because of the handicap and the constraints in getting these Shruti boxes of tablas, enough of them. In fact, for the Hindustani music person to play the tabla, you're not getting. So all of this caused a kind of a decrease in the number of people going in for this. But because after these things came in, it was so easily available. People started just, learning. Many schools sprouted everywhere. And then you had all these
You will be surprised.
TV
Even
shows,
Akashvani.
Yeah.
Akashvani started ordering these
Akashvani started
electronic tanpuras.
ordering. Schools, colleges, music colleges, regular universities, Banaras Hindu University itself, things like that. So it helped promote and proliferate Indian music, both Hindustani and Carnatic, amongst the youngsters, as well as help the professional musicians who are by then traveling a lot across the globe. It was easy for them to carry this in their international flights. Otherwise, it was so hard to carry those physical tamburas. Hariprasad Chaurasia once even said in an open concert, earlier we used to carry these big instruments all over the place. We used to struggle. And he called them from the audience, come here, Raj Narayan. Yeah, he is the guy who made the boxes that I carry now. So that one, that tall little tambura shaped thing was again in response to a customer who said, I will not use these instruments, the box type instruments, on stage because I need the sound near my ear. So he said, you put me, make something with a speaker near the ear. So that's how we said, if we are going to do it, make it aesthetic, artistic, so that it's like a little tanpura. When you sit on the floor and you place it beside you, it comes near your ear. It has 4 strings, which if you pluck physically, it senses, but the sound is perfectly tuned electronically, or you can leave it on the stage to play by itself. So these things, you devise as you go along depending on what each customer wants. He was talking about bags. One of the earliest customers we had, he said, it's all very nice. We used to make these huge wooden boxes and just hand it over to the customer, maybe in a bag or something, carry bag. He said, why don't you make a nice carry bag with a handle which I can carry? So then we started making it, but initially the quantities were so small that we had to stitch the bags at home by ourselves, which we did. Because, he knew how to stitch, so of course, so did I. Later we got tailors, and after that we outsourced. All that is a different story. But again, need based, feedback based, customer feedback based, that's how you iterate the whole thing and make it grow.
When she's talking about customer feedback, this is one thing I find missing even in large organizations. They try to only selectively respond to positive feedback, but if you have a negative feedback, a genuine negative feedback saying, I find this product not working or not matching this function that you had publicized, or it is possibly malfunctioning, etc., they ignore it. They don't respond because they're scared of it escalating. Whereas in my case, it would be very interesting for a marketing student. There were a few people very well established, both as musicians and also very well established to business houses. I don't want to name that person. Wrote a very nasty letter saying, I bought this instrument thinking it will be useful and it's absolutely worthless. I spent a lot of money and it's gone down the drain, this, that. She didn't even say, I want to return it. Just vented her anger, handwritten. And I said, let me get back to her. And I wrote a very polite response saying, I'm surprised by your reaction, but I feel that you haven't read the manual fully and operated the operating buttons in the sequence that they are supposed to be. Can you please try this? I said step 1, 2, 3. I have this habit of writing everything in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So please follow this and get back to me. And after a week, she wrote a letter that was completely apologetic. She need not have apologized at all, considering
nice of her, actually.
stature. But she said, not only apologize, I appreciate the manner in which you handled my complaint. And this is not the only thing. This is one of the such cases. Multiple cases I have, even from abroad. I still have some of the reactions. People were writing from the US saying, this is not working, that's not working. I said, try this, operate this knob, see if it works. They were amazed and they said it's working. And believe it or not, in our digital instruments that we make now, there are hidden functions which will take it back to factory reset. Many products have it, they don't tell you. So here also we have built in, because to prevent people from accidentally or just tinkering around with it, we don't inform them. In some manuals we do inform them, but that's also part of the creative design. Where if it is possible for you to recover automatically a problem, because in software it happens very often. Like the Windows, it would hang. The blue screen, we are all familiar with it.
Of death.
Yes. So that should have been there. Today, all microcontrollers, processors have a built-in feature that if it will recognize by itself, it's gone into a infinite loop. So there is a method to recover from that. So I used to build these features into the product. Some of our engineers are sitting there. They will be able to figure out. So this is, again, creative design. It's not just innovation and creation, but you need to ensure that to the extent possible, you design a product such that it can rectify faults by itself, or through a sequence of actions you can bring it back to original condition. Yeah, this is the digital tabla. So when I was talking about the analog tabla that I developed initially, gradually when we went into microcontrollers, microprocessors, digital technology, we had to come out with a digital tabla. This is the latest, where you have advanced features like fill-in, which are available in various keyboards.
The sound is a real tabla sampled and put it into the chip inside.
So this is again
this is that Lehra machine that we were talking about. Next one, please.
With a different, these are two again revolutionary, innovative products. Now in Carnatic music, what every child goes through is the initial exercises. We call it Sarale Verse, Jante Verse, Alankara, Gita, etc. Graded exercises. Now the child goes to a teacher, and in front of the teacher the child sings, and if the child makes a mistake, the teacher can correct, especially in terms of either the tempo or the swarasthana, the sa, with reference to the sa, sa, ri, ga, ma, that specific pitch has to be maintained. If the child goes wrong, the teacher will say ga is not okay, ma is not okay, whatever. But at home, you may have parents who are not musical. So if the child practices with wrong notes at home, the wrong practice is happening, and it gets imbibed. So we developed a product called Swaravali.
Yeah, that plays all the exercises in 1 speed, 2 speed, 3 speeds, one by one, all together, any pitch, any raga, etc., etc., for the benefit of the learners. So that was one instrument, and that was very useful for the kids. The second instrument is what is known as a digital swarmandal. I don't know if you have seen some of the North Indian musicians having this big square thing, and they keep strumming it. It just gives a kind of an extra background of the notes of the raga. But that instrument actually is very difficult. It's got about 24 or 32 strings. And every time the artist changes his raga, his next item, he has to tune each one of those. It takes ages, and a lot of people don't use it. So we developed a digital thing that you can just press the buttons to get the next note and tune each string very easily. So that was one more product. The next, please. And then we developed a product that is a combo. So what if you have a tabla and a tanpura in one instrument? So this is the one that's
so North Indians need the tabla for the practice. They need the tanpura also.
So they can just buy one instead of two. So this is that combo instrument.
Next, please.
And then this is a patented invention, which is an Indian music a synthesizer. Basically,
what you see on the right side, bottom, that's a synthesizer.
The one that he's playing, he's demonstrating, that is a Indian music. It's a synthesizer equivalent to keyboard, except that the Western music basic instrument is a piano, so they use a keyboard. Our basic instrument is a veena. So this is a completely synthesized instrument with every string being a sensor, every fret being a sensor. They're not real strings, they're real frets. They don't become, it doesn't matter how tight or loose they are, it doesn't matter where the position of the fret is. The number of the fret is what counts, and it gives you a perfect note every time. It will allow you to tune all 7 strings at the same time to any pitch. I played concerts on it and things, so it was a very unique and revolutionary instrument. Yeah, next one, please. And the latest one is this digital harmonium, which is again a completely digital synthesized version of the Indian harmonium, which eliminates a lot of the problems of the harmonium, like the bellows, getting the cloth of the bellows getting eaten by insects, the reeds going bad and needing replacement, none of that. And it's an Indian scale instrument, which is again very rare. It's a scale changer. You can get any pitch.
I think I need to intervene here.
Yeah.
The Indian scale
Yeah.
is not chromatic. The Western scale is chromatic, which means that the ratio of frequencies of each key or note is the same with reference to the previous note. So you have 12 notes in an octave. And in a chromatic scale, all notes, each of the note, whether it's white or black, is one semitone higher than the previous, and the ratio of the frequency is the same. So that's why it's called equal tempered or chromatic. Indian scale is based on natural frequency, that is harmonics. And this is natural because every sound in reality will always be in harmonics. It cannot be in chromatic scale at all. So in many ways, chromatic scale is not accepted even by some purists of Western music. It's a matter of convenience, because if you want to change the scale, it has to be equal tempered. Otherwise, it will become, some of the notes will be completely out of tune. And you have a harmonium with which is called a scale changer, where the entire playing keyboard shifts physically. So you can move it from, say, white 1 giving you C to white 1 on C sharp or D sharp, etc. That way you can physically move it, but then the reeds that are producing the sound is again the same, so it has got to be chromatic. But Indian music, the Gandhar is the 5th harmonic, Pancham is the 3rd harmonic. So that is how it is, and that is how it has got to be. And that is the difference between a good musician like Balamurali Krishna. When he sings, you find it soothing and absolutely enjoyable, because the harmonics are maintained, the notes, which we call as swarasthanas. So it is impossible to make unequal tempered scale changing harmonium for Indian music, Hindustani music. And this is again the need identified. I said, when you have need an unequal tempered, and if it is going to be software generated, software can identify any key as sa and correspondingly apply the unequal ratios to all the keys following the sa. That's what we have built into this. These small niceties about Indian music is not known to a lot of people, especially the younger generation, because everybody has gone into keyboards, this, that, and we have a tendency to mimic the Western system and rather than follow our own Indian system. And Indian system can be justified because in real life, everything has got to be harmonics. First harmonic is fundamental, second harmonic, third harmonic. All these harmonics, one of them will definitely give you the notes that you need. Next, please. Yeah, this is the 2 patent certificates that I've got.
One for the harmonium and one for the digital veena. The next one. These are the awards.
The Karnatica Rajyotsav Award I got in 1996. Ananya Best, this is as a performer, Ananya Best Musician Award. Then that I think the Kalashri Award, again from the government of Karnataka. The bottom right is R&D Award from Government of India, MSME department. way back in 2011. I'll now hand over for a brief talk on the business aspect, if you have anything else to say.
I've already spoken about how we responded to every customer to build on the creative side. The other side was also how do you make sure that the customers are always satisfied? You respond like immediately. I don't find that today in organizations. If you ask for help, I am Disha, can I help you? And that's a bot. We do not use bots. We have human beings. Because the customers who get back to us are human beings. And they want a solution for their problem or their query, whatever. So we make sure that we respond very quickly to customers and make them satisfied with their issue, whether it's a service issue or a quality issue. And we are now known for not having quality issues. So over the years, we've tried to hold service camps in various dealers' places. And we wouldn't have any walk-ins because then the dealer would say, why are you people having service camps? Your products don't fail. So somebody would once in a while bring in one of those old wooden boxes and say, can you do something for this? But otherwise, no, they don't really fail. And if they do fail, we get into the bottom of the cause, the root cause analysis and that sort of thing. And basically make sure, and at every step, make sure that the customer is kept informed what's going on. We also built up a dealer network because at one point of time, how much can you reach out individually to customers? So we created a dealer network across India. We have about 220 plus dealers. Way back in 98, we had a few queries from abroad and they said we want to buy. So we would say, create an international demand draft, bank draft. They say, what are you talking about? We don't even go to the bank. Don't you have a credit card system? We don't have. How can you do it online? Created a website, created an e-commerce website in between 1998 and 2000 where a guy sitting in the US could swipe, online, use his credit card and order our products and we would ship it to them. And that's still going on. And so even there, we, again, need-based. So you find that the guy in Mexico or New Zealand wants something, you create the infrastructure for the person to be able to order and get his product online. And this was what? Way back 30 years ago. So you had to do it. And once you say, I have to do it, you'll do it. So that's how we built on those lines. And that's how it continues today. And the other thing that I would really like to emphasize here is our focus on perfection. So every little thing has to be just perfect. I think some of our employees in the factory, they will tell you how finicky we are about that. And unless you are particular about that perfection, you won't get the end product perfect. Every step has to be perfect. So that is another aspect, and that relates to sales and marketing because that's how it ends up being a perfect product. But the way it becomes a product acceptable to the customers is there, back there, where you start. And you respond to everything. How do they want it to look? How do they want it to feel? Does it have to look traditional? Does it have to look this way? Are they willing to accept a change? All of this you have to go into. And that's how you build, little by little, little by little. It's very slow, in our case, but yes, it worked.
We'll now open it up to Q&A. So if anyone has a question, just put up your hand and we'll get the mic to you.
Thank you for the talk. So, you have very strong first principles and you've taken different domains and solved problems using fundamentals of other domains. But I'm sure when you started out, you had, because there is a certain amount of money at stake and you have to think about businesses also as a commercial endeavor, not just a passion project, because this has to work, you have to scale, all of that. Could you take us through the process of picking what domain you want? Why this domain? Why did you? I'm sure you could have built in. You have degrees in very different subjects, right? You could have picked those, and I'm sure those are very lucrative domains as well, right?
So this was not a very deliberate decision. We sort of got pulled into it almost accidentally. Like he said, he started making it one by one for himself. And we were in touch with a lot of musicians, being musicians ourselves and in the field. And they would see this and they would say, "It's very nice, make me one." We would make them one. Another one would say, "Come and make me and one." And we'd make them another. So one became two, became 10, became 20. That's how it grew. And at that point of time, when we started the business, he gave up his job in HAL and started for sustenance a small jobbing subcontract work for BHEL winding transformer coils. We thought we would grow that into something else. And at no point did we work like the startups of today who have a plan, then they go. I don't even understand those words, seed, funds, and first round. And no, no, no. Those days we were known as small scale industry. You went to the bank and you asked for a working capital loan and you ask for 10,000 rupees. And the guy says, I need security for the 10,000 rupees. Okay, here's an FD. No, the FD is joint name. It has to be in a single name and not his name. Jewelry. Okay, that's how it went in those days. So, and then you've heard of the word bootstrapping, right? That's how this industry grew. Bootstrapping.
Literally, that 10,000 is what
Literally.
is the capital that has gone into whatever we are now.
And so you also made multiple things in the same domain, or iterating on things, combining things. You could also have lots of organizations grow differently. Some organizations choose to pick a domain and go very deep into it. Some organizations pick adjacencies, sometimes not even adjacencies. It could be something entirely different they acquire, or So how has that? Because it's 4 decades, right? And lots of decisions in terms of business would have happened. Lots of choices would have come up to acquire, to build. Could you take us through that? Why did you choose to stay in the domain? Did you think of adjacencies outside? Did you think of acquiring?
We have gone into other domains. He will get into that.
So, aerospace was actually a passion as well as much as music. In fact, I would say aerospace was more of a passion than music. It was incidental that I also was a performing musician thanks to the family background. But I was crazy about airplanes and aeronautics right from high school. And I even wanted to do a post-graduation in aerospace, but I couldn't get into the Tata Institute or IIT at that time. This was 1968. So Professor Dhawan, whom I met at that time, said the next best thing for you would be to get into HAL. I got in naturally because people saw that I was highly motivated and very, very crazy about it. And through a very, very exhaustive training program, got into design, which is what I wanted to be. One of my ambitions was to be an aircraft designer. But there I got exposed to electronics. I was very lucky to get exposed to and working in a lab along with 3 other engineers, all by ourselves, experimenting, doing a lot of crazy things. But it was not rewarding. Public sector can be very harsh, and you need to be extremely patient, or you can say, okay, I'll keep this as a steady job, on the side I'll do something else. That's what mostly happens. I chose not to do that. I said, if I'm not happy, one day I came back and she said, if you're not happy, just kick your job. That's exactly the word she used. And the next day I submitted my resignation. Without her saying that, I wouldn't have quit. So that support was there from her. And I said, by then these musical instruments, I was, like she said, making ones and twos and fours, etc. So it was growing. And I thought with some other subcontract work from, again, public sectors, you didn't have this so-called startup. Startup was not known.
No venture capital, no
That word didn't
angels.
exist, at least in India.
And we didn't have the luxury of time to think, what shall I do? How shall I grow my business? Is this a good field? No, you are busy making them. You are busy fulfilling orders. You were just too busy. You were drowned in work. There was no time to think. And it just grew like
I'll tell you one more thing. Many people here would not be aware of this. In 19 late 80s or early 90s, Infosys wanted working capital, the banks won't give. Okay, so that was the finance sector at that time. There was no support, and all the banks were basically nationalized Indian banks. So they didn't care whether they lent any money or not, whether they earned any income at all. They just didn't bother. So all these software companies struggled initially. It's only after they started growing and they went international when people started laughing at these bank chairmen and managers and saying, these people have grown without your support. Then they took it up. So even in 95, when I set up the industry in Electronic City, I hardly got any bank support. I went to KSFC Financial, which again was supposed to be not a clean organization, but I got everything done thanks to my luck, where I had somebody who appreciated what I was doing. So you cannot compare to today's situation where startups have VCs funding, lots of money floating around, and a lot of money
and
to
you have a
play
kid, maybe in the final year of engineering saying, I'll do my own startup. And then they start thinking, where shall I do it? How shall I do it? Would this be good? Would that be good? They analyze, they assess. No time. That luxury we didn't have. We were up to our eyebrows in work. Because you've got the orders, you've got to fulfill it. And then at one point of time in 1996, 97, we were a little early, 95. We had so much of a backlog because these were all wooden boxes. Our carpenters just weren't able to, uh, cope with that kind of a thing. That's when we decided. So the kinds of decision we took were to increase production, drastically increase production by going in for plastic molds. How do you do that? And how do you increase the production? So one by one, we first did for one product, then went for a mold for the other product. That's how things happened. And then, setting up automatic, what do you call it?
soldering, pick and place machine.
Pick and place machines, wave soldering machines, the
Free-flow soldering machine, SMD lines,
yeah,
surface mount, which is today's
everything.
technology.
And the production line itself,
So
the
by
conveyor belt
automation, we were able to scale up.
Lot of automation, conveyor belts, everything. So that we were into that, and parallelly developing new products within the same field. And somewhere around 2005, the government opened up the defense domain to private sector. That's when we went into the avionics. And there too, we developed about more than 20 products for the Air Force and for HAL and for Army, Navy.
Some of our equipment are flying on the MiG-29, Jaguar fighter, AN-32 transport aircraft. So we've developed an LED landing light, which is one of the most powerful lights for the Kiran, flying on the Kirans.
So again, what drove us to go into that? Deep down is the passion. And that's what keeps you going. That when everything else is just breaking around you, and many times it was, it's the inner passion and the motivation that's, no, I have to do this. It's that creative fire that keeps you going,
There's
regardless of how bad it is outside.
There's one more thing which we have not talked about. Any product, any line, any domain, you come out with a path-breaking invention or a creative idea, there will be 100 people wanting to duplicate that, copy paste. Okay, it happened to us. There was somebody in Hyderabad, somebody in Bombay is copying, and those days these software that we put into memory chips, they could not be locked. So anybody else could remove that chip and read it and copy the software, which is what one person in Bombay did. And thanks to our legal system, lawyer's notice did not produce any results. We couldn't proceed against them. It's not worth it because court also doesn't work in these days. So the only way forward is to keep one or two steps ahead of competition, which is what we have been doing. And that's what she's been saying. We were busy with that. In a niche area, because of one is the passion, two, survival itself depends on continuous creativity, continuous innovation. So when microprocessors came in, I said we have to use microprocessors. When microprocessors went and were replaced by controllers and DSPs, I said we have to do it.
And very often, it's self-education. He was not trained in any of this microcontrollers, microprocessor, educated himself, trained himself. So you have to do it, you have to train yourself, you have to make sure that, you keep abreast of the latest technology.
Yeah. Hi. My name is Kiran. Uh, uh, I don't. I want to make this sound critical. I just want to bring that up front. The products you made back in time were revolutionary for that time, and it probably disrupted the whole of the ecosystem, the Indian classical music ecosystem. Uh, so this is a dilemma that I'm facing even now. So when we look at time and flow into the present, we've seen a constant sense of automation that replaces a person's livelihood. I'm pretty sure you've navigated these scenarios as well. So if, like, for now, if you were to think of an invention or create something, probably another person's livelihood might be at stake. How would you go about navigating such a social?
I can see a parallel between what you're saying and the uh, comparison to the acoustic instruments, our traditional instruments. That, say, for example, the same thing. We were accused of taking away the livelihood of the tanpura player on the stage. We were accused of taking away the livelihood of the tanpura maker. But then, in any case, the tanpura makers were not able to survive because they didn't have their next generation taking over. There was no other artisan willing to come and make those tanpuras. They wanted to go into the city to factory jobs. So they were facing this problem anyway. And even in the case of, say, an acoustic veena, you take a Western music piano, you have an acoustic piano, you have a digital piano. People play both. There is no conflict. You have an acoustic instrument, you have an acoustic guitar, you have an electric guitar. There is no conflict. The acoustic guitar maker makes it. You play that. I have an 80-year-old veena at home. I play it. I also have an electronic veena and I play it. There's no conflict. There are different occasions for which you use various products. Handcrafted products they have their place, they have their value. But if you wanted to reach a population like ours, millions, you cannot manage with those. So there's no contradiction there. That is what I'm saying. We are
No,
not
I think
taking it.
the point he's raising is about the livelihoods being like you also
Nobody's
point.
livelihood
No,
is
no,
going away.
you answered part of it. There is also as part of evolution, there will be some people now. Even people are talking about coders, saying AI is going to take away their jobs. They'll have to migrate to something else. In fact, why introduction of computers into banks and LIC and all that was heavily resisted till Rajiv Gandhi became prime minister. He sort of pushed it, and thanks to that, today we have online transactions, etc., etc. That is what has led to this. So it has to happen, but people will have to be resilient enough to switch their careers into areas either which has higher value or the same value, and that's part of growth for the economy, for the community.
For
It's a
themselves.
holistic
For themselves.
solution.
It's still relevant. It's still
It is there.
relevant.
It is there.
My question was basically on two dimensions. So, how would you talk about creativity and excellence versus failure and innovation? Because in the journey of innovation and invention, we read about so many different products failing, then creators working on it, and then you also have the spurt of creativity throughout your journey, through which you have seen different opportunities and created these things, starting from the instruments you created for yourself. So, how do you see all this? And then also, like ma'am said, at every step there was this pursuit of excellence and the quality aspect of it. So, what are your thoughts on that? Like.
Thanks for asking that question, because it's related to what you said. I actually wanted to say this, but we got sidetracked. It's a fact that we only talk about successes, not failures. And the failures are much more in number than the successes. So every successful business has encountered lots of failures, not just one, many failures. And a long-lasting business will go through ups and downs like this. Some things will succeed, some things will not. Like she was talking about this Swaravali instrument that was playing the Alankarams and Geetas, etc. Nobody bought it. We had to scrap it. All the effort in developing that had to be written off. The digital veena, for which I hold a patent, we've stopped manufacturing, because traditional veena artists, they say, oh, we should not use such revolutionary products. There is a resistance. Why? Even the tanpura, had it not been for Dr. Balamurali Krishna using it on stage without the traditional instrument, I don't think it would have taken off. You need some people in the field, in the domain, to accept it and be the, what do you call it, the influencer or whatever. Those days, the word influencer did not exist. It's just that Dr. Balamurali Krishna saw the value of a portable instrument that he could carry it, and then, these tanpura players, they would also be knowing music. In the middle of a concert, they would doze off. So the tanpura would stop playing. And the lead musician had to shake them and say, hey, continue the tanpura. Yes. So, these are all things that we have gone through. There will be failures, you have to overcome. And in fact, I appreciated Karishma for saying the resilience is what this talk is all about. You need resilience to survive. There will always be negatives in whatever you do. Somebody will say it's beautiful, somebody will say this is rotten. Even to this day, I experience that. With the harmonium also.
Absolutely, with the harmonium. Some of those comments are motivated, some of them are out of ignorance, but it comes out, and it could just be a choice.
So there is a good mix of you're learning to accept, properly assess what the feedback is, whether it is justified or not. Try to reason with that person. If it is not justified, explain it to them. Like I talked about how I explained how to operate the instrument, and not lose your cool, but get back to them. But if they are very stubborn, then over a period of time you have to discard that customer and say, okay, he is one of the unhappy. There have been even cases where we have returned the money to them, and whether we got the instrument back or not, we return the money. You earn goodwill. So that's all part of the, like you pay for advertisement, you write off that instrument as something goodwill you have earned. So lots, I hope I've answered your question. There will be lots of failures, but you have to learn from failures.
Even in the process of producing or inventing or creating a product, it's failure, failure, failure all the way till you get it.
Correct. Correct. Perseverance, absolutely required.
Thank you for this fascinating story. I mean, there's so many layers to unwrap. I mean, your personal story, the business story, the product innovation. My question is very specific as an engineer on the. I think you touched upon it a little bit on the prototyping. Like, how do you prototype in the early days, and how has it changed? Do you use like, say, 3D printing, or any of these other techniques? How did that prototyping change over a period of time? You touched upon specific aspects of that, and hope, I think, you're considering maybe writing a book, also, because this is like amazing feedback as a both as a product designer and a product engineer. I think the insights were absolutely fascinating.
The first Tanpuras that we, even not only the prototype, but even so-called pre-production or what she was talking about, making ones and twos and fours, etc. We used to hand paint the PCB, printed circuit board. We were both good artists.
You won't believe this.
You won't believe it.
Listen.
She has a chemistry background. I have an electronics background. So I know what is required in a PCB. So I designed the PCB.
Yes. The etching.
So I had to paint on a copper clad sheet, which is the bare board, before the board is etched into the tracks. And she would etch it using ferric chloride and sulfuric acid at home. Okay, because the minimum order any PCB manufacturer would accept is 100 numbers. And if you wanted 2 numbers, 3 numbers, I wouldn't feel like I didn't have the confidence to invest that much of money. Because we were first generation entrepreneurs. We didn't look at this as a business. We thought we were trying to help out musicians in distress. That's the way we looked at this when we started this business.
Unfortunately, it didn't start like a business, and for many years it didn't run like a business.
And she even got to, if I was busy with something, she learned soldering. So she would insert the components and solder, make the PCBs herself. She had no electronics background, but from endocrinology to electronics, she was doing it.
I'm pretty good at finding out bad solders now.
This is different grades, and that is where, the skills I was talking about. Creativity is so much dependent on skills. More the skills you have. As an artist, you might have done just trees and cars and painting in a painting book. You use that artist skill if you have developed it for painting PCBs. Not that I'm saying you can do it for thousands but when we got to a level where at least 40, 50 numbers we were sure of, then I said, okay, 100 numbers I'll invest. Every time I got an order, I would go. Bharat Electronics had a showroom in Residency Road, shop, to sell commercial transistors. And initially, we used to use discrete transistors. I used to go there and buy 10 transistors for making 10 instruments.
No, the first time you
Today we
wanted 10, I
said,
you're buying 10? 10? You think we'll make 10? Because it was, you didn't have enough communication in those days. You didn't know how many will sell. And this is such a new product. How many people will accept it? We don't know. It's like shooting in the dark.
Yeah, so these are all things that we have gone through and scaled up, learned part of it, and there's a learning almost on a daily basis.
Now he's asking what you do now for prototyping today.
Now, so in the last 2 years, we have used 3D printing for creating either small quantity of knobs or some things as a trial. 3D printing, unless you go for very expensive 3D printing, which can go into aerospace also. The recent launch of a satellite and rocket by one of Indian companies, they used a lot of 3D printer. They're not plastic. Metal. Metal 3D printing is extremely expensive. For an area like aerospace, you can afford it, though it's still a risky thing. But for consumer products, it's not worthwhile. You can't go for 3D printing unless it's a very high value product, industrial product that costs, let's say, 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs or even 50 lakhs. Then it's worth, if you're sure you're not going to mass produce it. Prototyping, yes, but it's a very huge investment. But for simple things, a lot of 3D printing is used today only for aesthetic evaluation.
Assessment.
Assessment
How is
of
it
the
going to look?
prototype looks. Yes, yes. But in our case, functional prototypes, you have to have the prototype of the boards, prototype of the cabinets. So mostly we use either wooden cabinets or to start assess a product. And once it's finalized, if we are sure of mass volumes, then only we can go for an injection mold, which the cost of a mold, you won't believe it, we spent about 70 lakhs on injection molds for the harmonium. And at best, we might be able to sell 200 harmoniums in a month. So it's not a really mass-produced item. But without that, even 100 numbers I can't make in a month. So you have to do it. So you have to take that risk. Either it works or it doesn't work. So if going back to her question, if it doesn't work, we have lost this 70 lakhs. It's down the drain.
Hi, sir. My name is Arvind. I'm a designer myself. I just want to understand what made you own manufacturing apart from capital, right? Like you mentioned, yes, tooling it costs 70 lakhs, and then you have tooling trials, you have to maintain the molds. Apart from capital, how did you get the confidence to do it? Because we're a service provider. We work with 12 to 14 like startup founders in hardware space. All of them have money, but none of them have the capability to own manufacturing because there's too many liabilities over there. And given in the current space, China is there. You can literally upload your Gerber files and you'll get PCB in 7 days. In Alibaba, you can get your molds done and everything. So at that time, what gave you the confidence to own manufacturing? And another sub question is, if you are doing it now, would you own manufacturing right now in this current space? And
Okay, there are multiple dimensions here. One, at that time, you didn't have this outsourced manufacturing facility. There were very few electronic industries actually operating successfully. Electronics, again, was a buzzword those days. As I told you, when we went into Electronic City in 1994, there were hardly any industries apart from the larger ITI and Tata Power and so on, defense electronics. So you had to manufacture yourself. Everything was manual. And the question of, even to this day, this so-called mobile manufacturing is nothing but screwdriver technology. Okay, at best, you might be populating some of these simpler boards like power supplies, this, that. But the main motherboard comes all assembled from China or Taiwan, anywhere else, Philippines also, where the ecosystem is there. Our ecosystem still hasn't developed. We keep talking about it, but it doesn't exist. So there was no other option 50 years ago, 45 years ago, when we started. We had to have the industry. And as part of growth, we said, okay, let us go in. That is where I was progressive enough to say, I will not look at manual labor and go in for automated wave soldering first. And then as components became smaller and smaller, I realized it had to be robotic. So about 15 years ago, we went into surface mount devices where robotic pick and place machines are used. And then that technology also rapidly advances. We have to write off the older machines and get more. This is part of industry. A lot of people don't realize this. So there is a write-off every year that has to happen. And your profits and margins have to accommodate this. On paper, the profit margin may appear to be, the raw material cost of electronic components may be only about 30% or less than that. 30-35%. But there is a write-off and you have to recover the R&D cost. How many industries in India spend on R&D? No, very few. And as an MSME, 5 to 6% per year, every year we have spent. That's a lot of money. Tatas get their engines designed in Italy, not in India. So there is a lot of things that are known in the public domain in this country. So that much of potential is there that's going unharnessed because we are not encouraging skills. We are not encouraging people to be on their own and give them the confidence. Engineering colleges are churning out graduates who don't know what they have studied. So there are a lot of lacunae in the existing ecosystem that needs to be improved.
If you were building this brand in 2026, would you still have owned manufacturing?
Maybe not. Maybe not. It's a matter of time. Yeah, I definitely would agree. I would outsource manufacturing. In fact, now we are looking at that as an option to provide manufacturing facilities to other startups. Yeah. So if you have some projects, definitely we'll be happy to look at it. In case you people haven't already recognized, Radel stands for Radhika Electronics.
So thank you.
And thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you.